We are live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the program Shagalinku TV. It's good to be here again to do the Saturday's edition of the program. Okay, let me start with apologies first. We were supposed to do a sensitization workshop today for traditional and religious leaders and CSOs and media, but the rain in Kano today was something else. In fact, Lagos no be Kano. It rained heavily from 6 a.m up until like 11 o'clock, and then we couldn't do that sensitization workshop. So apologies to everyone that was supposed to be in that program. Hopefully, God willing, tomorrow by 2 o'clock, we'll be having that program live, for traditional rulers on gender-based violence and how we can stop it. Okay, my name is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari, and welcome to the Saturday's edition. Today, we'll be looking at climate change, we'll be looking at environment, we'll be also looking at COVID-19. So what has changed over these months? Pius will always say is a new norm and all that. And I've got two wonderful guests here to join me and talk about issues affecting us. We're looking at how we can also begin to build a sustainable environment, knowing now that it's a new norm and we have to live with COVID-19 as it is. I have two guests here, so let me bring them on and then we will talk more. But first of all, let me also say thanks. This episode is sponsored and brought to you all by the Climate and Sustainable Development Network, that is CSDEFnet, and also Pan African Climate Justice Alliance, also known as PAGJA. Good afternoon, my wonderful guests. Can you all hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay. Okay, Ngozi, you're welcome. Mr. Pius, it's good to have you. So let's start with Ambassador Ngozi. We'd like you to tell us what you do, your organization.
Good afternoon, Ambassador Gambari. It's good
You're
to
welcome.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the ladies. They say ladies first. So, Ambassador Ngozi, let's have you tell us more who you are, what you do, your organization, and then we'll go on to talk about our topic of discussion.
All right, thank you so much for having me. It's a very wonderful opportunity to be here. So, my name is Ngozi. I work with Dean Initiative, but currently I am the community manager at Global Goals Community Center, Gwagwalada. So my organization is focusing on localizing global action. So we are focusing on driving action for the sustainable development goals. We are into pushing up advocacy and awareness on gender, equality, climate change, education. We are just working around the 17 SDG, but we are working mostly with rural communities in Abuja. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ngozi. Let me come back to Mr. Pius. You are a regular here. I don't think you should even introduce your name. But yes, for official reasons, let's know who Mr. Pius is, what you do, and let's take it up from there. Over to you, Pius.
Yes, good afternoon, sustainable colleagues, and it's a pleasure always being here. I'm Pius Oko, and I work for Climate and Sustainable Development Network. It's an arm of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PAGJA, in Nigeria, made up of coalition of civil society groups across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And what we do is that we bring youth, women, civil society organizations, media, faith group, community-based organizations together with a goal of promoting and advocating for poor, eco-friendly, and climate-friendly, equity-based response to climate issues and sustainable development in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. So that's what we do. And thank you for having me.
And thank you, Mr. Pius. It's a pleasure to have you guys. And thank you, Ambassador Ngozi. I am happy that you guys are also doing the nitty gritty work, because sometimes when they talk about climate change, people just think, masses just think, that it's, especially for the rural woman, she just thinks when you use firewood, cook food, it is sweet past well, when you use electric stove or something. So basically, let me even start with Ngozi. How can young people begin to also drive locally led climate change action? Because every time, what you hear sometimes from people is it's more of a foreign thing, but we're beginning to see how the rainy season, the erosion, and so much is happening, and then people are beginning to say, okay, oh, I think the thing that you guys have been talking about, climate change, we're beginning to see it in reality. But let's even start with you, Ngozi, before I come back to Pius. How can we begin to, as young people, also begin to localize, and think, fashion ways for us to make this whole climate action a reality, in our community?
All right, thank you so much. What you have mentioned is that young people in Nigeria, they're already doing something. So, but what we can say is that there has been disparity in the actions that have been taken, mostly targeting the urban areas. Okay, so like I said, I work with an organization and we're focusing on rural community. So young people can domesticate this action. Okay. Yesterday, we took part in a climate strike and we had some young people joining us all the way from town to Gwagwalada. So we're also advocating for the planting of trees. We know that planting of trees is a way that young people can also lead action on climate change. But now we're saying we need to plant more of indigenous species, okay? Because research has shown that this indigenous species can help to combat the issue of climate change. Also, we are also saying that young people should not allow their voice to be silenced. They should keep on speaking about climate change. Whatever opportunity that they find, they should speak about climate change like we're doing here. Is a wonderful opportunity to be talking about it. Also, we're also advocating that apart from talking about it, young people should also change their lifestyle, the way they live, because we find out that more than 50% of our population are young people. And if we all work together in changing our lifestyle, moving to a more eco-friendly lifestyle, that's a huge action we are taking. Also, we are also saying that young people should join a movement. This is a fight for everyone. This is a fight for our planet. And especially this is a fight for young people because our future is being impacted. And by joining forces together, we can amplify our voice to keep on talking about it. Nothing is forced about climate change. The science are there to prove it. Like you said, before, by now, we shouldn't be facing rain. But you can imagine we are still facing rain and they are causing flooding. So it's facing us in the face, and young people are mostly impacted. So by joining movements, by speaking about climate change, by changing their lifestyle, young people can always find a way to lend their voice to the issue of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ngozi. In case you just joined us, the program is Shagalinko TV. This is the Saturday's edition. It comes your ways every Tuesdays and Saturdays, 2 p.m. West African time. And today we're looking at what we can do for environment, what we can do to make the environment safe for all of us. And I've got two guests here, Ambassador Ngozi and Mr. Pius, talking with me here. And Pius, are you there? Can you hear me, Pius? Okay, let's take a few messages here while we wait for Pius to join us. Help us read this, Ngozi. It's from Elizabeth. Please go on, Ngozi.
Okay. She says, well done, team. CS DevNet. Yeah, they are doing amazingly well. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
I'm
Thank
back.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Pius, I was also going to ask you what
Can
you
you
think
hear me?
about. Yes, I can hear you. Ngozi just mentioned something about
Hello,
how
Ambassador.
young
Can you hear me?
people. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes.
Oh, okay. So, well, okay. So, I was going to also ask your own response to the question I asked Ngozi about what young people can do to also find a way of localizing, the issues surrounding climate change. Because sometimes when they talk about climate change and climate actions, they just feel that it's something you only see on the TV and all that. So, if you can hear me, Pius, what do you think about that? Okay. Um, we'll bring Pius back. Okay, Ngozi, let's read a few more messages here. This one is from Giata Johnson Ekele, and it says, Bravo team, CS DevNet. Okay, help us read this one, Ngozi.
Yeah, from Giata, she also said, very correct. More than 60% of the population are youths. Yeah, yeah, wait.
Thank you very much. It's true. So let's even come back. What do you think about the floodings? As we wait for Pius to join us, what do you think about the floodings? Because I also find that in most cities, drainage system is a situation, is a big issue.
Yeah,
So government puts in so much money to do beautiful roads, and they barely find time to fashion how drainage should go. So every time
yeah,
it's rainy season, we always will fault
yeah,
the drainage system, and that
yeah.
also adds up to pollution, it adds up to erosion, and it adds up to even degrading the roads itself. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Like you rightly mentioned, we have a government that they don't will I say they don't pay attention towards their infrastructure development. Okay, we are meant to understand that when major projects like building roads are being done, that you should consider so many factors. Of course, an environmental impact assessment needs to be done before you even try to start up those projects. But we found that our government, they don't pay attention to, and also we the people also contribute to it. Yes, we are not exempted. We find even when the drainage are constructed, we usually find some people depositing or dumping refuse inside the
Sure.
same drainage that is meant to allow water pass. And also we find people building on waterways. Well, one thing we don't understand is that nature will always find a way to thrive. There is no way you can stop water from finding its route. So when you build on waterways, when you build on paths that water was originally meant to pass through, they will find their way. And then when they move, that's where we have cases of flooding. So first, the government needs to pay attention in their infrastructure. They need to develop EIA in building most of their projects. And then we, the people, need to also think about how our action impacts in the flooding. It is wrong in all ramifications for us to keep dumping refuse inside drainage. That's a very unpatriotic service to our motherland. So when we do this, and when government takes into consideration the things they are meant to consider before embarking on this road project, and also making sure that people don't live near water bodies. We have people living near shorelines, and then they would always be impacted when we have flooding. So instead of governments putting money in spending relief material to these people, why not move them? Why not relocate them so that water and we always find the channel to move on? So thank you.
Thank you very much. Pius, welcome back. I'm still waiting for you to tell us more on what you think young people can do to also help in sensitizing the public. Because the truth is, like Ngozi said, when you leave the urban areas, just a little even to the rural, it will shock you to know how young people generally don't know anything about climate change and all that. So, Pius, over to you. Let's have your take on that.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I was having a little of network fluctuation, if I might call the network arm of climate change. So a lot of things young people could do locally to drive climate action and to take action mitigating some of these issues of climate change. One of it is civic engagement with our population, just like my colleague Ngozi mentioned, and also reaction from our platform comments. We have over 65 to 70% of young population across Africa and even Nigeria here. But we have been left out actually in policies, and so we need to unite effort. One of the major ways in which we could do this is through our social media platform. We know the power of social media now. We need to keep using that platform to update issues, educate our colleagues, our friends, and our young people. We need to keep using it to engage in discussing some of the change or demand for the change that we need, advocate for transparency, advocate for some of the actions that are needed to be taken to mitigate climate change, such as afforestation, planting of trees, taking direct action ourselves in the point of trying to reduce the single use of plastics, ensure that we properly manage our waste domestically before talking about the society, because we know how our nylon bags and also some of the bottles we use daily affect the environment. We also need to keep on empowering ourselves and other young ones alike through forums like this. Young people need to key in programs that are educating us or trying to enlighten us more on the issues of environment. We need to keep on trying to attend meetings and also draw up mentorship programs to help young ones and also share experiences in the form of experiential learning. And of course, using social media, we could also do more in terms of bringing us impact on how some of the things we do individually is affecting the globe and the environment entirely. So these are some of the things in which we could try as young people to engage with and also to help bring more in terms of climate action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers, wherever you are, you can join in the conversation. All you need to do is go to the comment section and drop your comments on what you think about our topic of discussion. We're looking at the environment, we're looking at climate change, we're particularly also looking at how it affects all of us in the new norm called the COVID-19 era. Okay, we're also asking that as you drop your comments, please do be kind enough to also add the hashtag what has changed. You know, that way we'll keep up the conversations and take it up from there. Pius mentioned something about plastics, you know, plastic containers that a whole lot of people dump. Ngozi also mentioned something about even when government tries to make provision for drainage systems, even citizens also mitigate the flow of water by dumping. Sometimes when these heavy rains come, you find it digs up a whole lot of takeaways, leather bags. You find so many refuse that's been thrown in the gutters. And I keep wondering that why will citizens be this bad to themselves? Because I would feel we are the ones hurting ourselves now if the drainages are not cleared well for water to pass. The government will not suffer all that. It is us, the citizens, because it is our community. And so that's why we need to also take ownership of some of these things. But I'll go on and ask Ngozi once again before I come to Pius. But let me quickly read a few messages here, and I'll come back and ask Ngozi what she thinks about the international and the national responses that have been going on. How do we also domesticate them? Because one thing is for us to have so many very beautiful laws, and then it gets to Africa and we say, you know, say now Africa think they different from other people, as if the deaths are not also the same, and it affects a whole lot of people. But let me take a few messages and then I'll come back to Ngozi and Pius. This one is from Oyibo Abubakar Sadiq, and it says, indeed, we need to err on the side of caution as regards the management of our environment, given that the environment gives us back whatever we give it. If we continue to pollute stroke degrade the environment, we would only be doing that, pollute, degrade to ourselves. I think he just said it all. You were mentioning how people even still keep things, and then we've also seen that even creatures, water creatures, are also complaining. Because these things also affect them in the sea, in the river, and all that. So let me even come back to you, Ngozi. How can we begin to learn from some of these international responses that have been on? A few responses here and there has been on. Um, I'm happy we're doing all this too, also supported by PAJA and CS DevNet, and it's a good thing. They are doing a whole lot, bringing young people together to also talk about all of this. But how can we also begin to trickle it down and make sure it goes round to everyone in the community?
All right. Thank you. Like my colleague said, Pius mentioned of young people coming together. Yes. Some few weeks ago, we had a Zoom meeting whereby young people joined a conversation on being part of the NDC. Okay. We believe it's time that we give young people their place. We believe that this is a time for young people to take their place. We need to be in the conversation. We need to have um, a place in the table because our life is being impacted, our future is being impacted. So we should not leave the decision for leaders because we know that few years they will not be here with us. We are the one that will be impacted negatively by these changes in our climate. So I want governments to also find a way to bring in young people to their conversation. There are amazing young people doing amazing things in the environment space. We have people like Oladosu Adenike, the eco-feminist that is championing the Fridays for Future. We have people like Sheyi, and then we have Mr. Pius also doing this. So it's time for government to bring young people to the conversation. We need to sit at the table with them. We need to show them we are innovative. A population that where 65% are young people, we have the power, and not just the power, we have the idea that will help solve this. So I was thinking, what if we have a summit where young people gather from every local government and see it, because we know that the same way that the climate is impacting someone in Kanu like you are is not the same way it's impacting somebody in the southeast. So we don't have to make decision for people. We need to allow people from their own zone to come and sit on the table and have this discussion like we see during the COVID-19. We see government setting up a task force, and people were drawn from different sectors, and they were making responses to help combat the issue of COVID. Why can't we have it now on an issue as delicate and very crucial issue like the climate change? So we need government to set up this task force. We don't have time. Our planet is shutting down, and the earlier government the area time Nigeria takes account of it, the better for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm getting more messages, so I'll read a few and then I'll let Pius come back and answer to us what's the relationship between climate change and public health and human health. Because a lot of times we also just we get carried away also by the health issues related to COVID-19, and we're not remembering there's a whole lot of other health angles that are suffering. So take for instance, COVID-19 has also brought the shadow pandemic of gender-based violence, of a whole lot of people who have underlying illness not also being able to access health facilities. So you find people who are diabetic, who are asthmatic, who pregnant women who for the fear of COVID-19 can't go to the hospitals. Some hospitals are even turning down outpatient people because they feel also overwhelmed, so to say. So I'll come back. and ask Pius all this. But I like, if Pius, if you can see some of these messages, I like you to read them. This one is from Ogbenyan Alo Okoye, from Dublin, Ireland. She's a very, very regular and frequent viewer of our program from Ireland. So Pius, if you can see this, please read for us.
I absolutely agree with Paris Oko. I think the other one said we need to sustain advocacy and climate action. Oh, sorry. So I think Okoye, Udiala Okoye says, I absolutely agree with Paris Oko on,
Okay.
I think, on the need
Yeah.
for climate action. Yeah.
Yeah. So please take this one
So,
before you come back and
okay.
respond.
Pontius Pilate says that poor housing planning, a lack of public enlightenment, population growth, poor resettlement, especially in the rural dwellers who often sell their land for the rich and push further to more rural areas. So most cases, waterways are blocked through dumping of refuse and plastic bags. Yes, of course, I totally agree with him. Those are some of immediate actions that are affecting our environment totally, and it's really affecting us generally. I totally agree with him on that aspect, and in addition to that, I would say that, of course, this is what we've been championing. That what has changed is that we now need to directly look at some of the issues that we could directly change in our ways, because the pandemic threat has threatened our individual and health system. Of course, whereas climate change, which we are undermining, is threatening our broader natural and human system in large. And so, amid this outbreak, it is important for us to remember that there's another crisis, which is climate, of course. And this threatens both human prosperity and our livelihoods. And like the issue of gender that you earlier mentioned, Ambassador, I would like to put some points there to say that environmental degradation from facts has shown to affect gender, and this has also led to gender violence like we are experiencing during the course of this pandemic. Because in a situation where the environment has been affected, especially in terms of agricultural production and food production, this threatens food insecurity and also leads to resource scarcity. And once this is in place, it means the people won't be at the right state of mind again to act effectively and efficiently in the way in which they are supposed to act. And of course, these are some of the linkages that leads to violence. And another issue again is the issue of let's say, our weak laws in place, where we have illegal mining licenses being issued out, where we have trafficking. Because where there are illegal mining, for example, or where there are illegal environmental actions being taken place, or farming, for example, it leads to illegalities in such areas. And so it leads to trafficking of children, for example, where children are being used as child labor in such processes for farming, for mining activities, and other actions. And those are some of the causes or major causes of, will I say, gender violence in the case of climate change, and also the vulnerability that climate change leads us to. So it is a linkage, because I would say, as far as this pandemic threatens life, climate crisis more threatens life, because it cuts across all drivers of life, from livelihood to health, from health to energy, from energy to agriculture to transportation. Climate change cuts across all these phases of life. So we need to really key into actions that will help us to mitigate some of the crises that we are seeing to come if climate change is not happening. Of course, we have been experiencing some already with the issues of flooding around communities across Nigeria, where, for example, rain in October, rain is still heavily downpouring in Kano, for example, and leading to a lot of chaos in Jigawa. We've seen a lot cut across the whole geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Those are some of the actions or some of the consequences if we don't take action now that climate change might lead us into.
Okay, thank you very much. We're still here, and I'll encourage for everyone who's watching and you want to share. The share button is there. Please share with your people. For our CS DevNet group, you're also free to share, and so others can join and be part of it. If they have questions, the comment button is there. And do remember to put the hashtag what has changed. Remember that this program is also supported by Climate and Sustainable Development Network, CS DevNet, and Pan African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA. And I have with me two wonderful people who've been doing well in terms of climate issues and environmental situations, talking about Ngozi and Pius. And they are here as our special guests on Shagalinku TV, the Saturday's edition. And we're looking at what we can do, what has changed, what needs to change, and what we can do better. Okay, so messages are here. I'll let Ngozi take some of them, and then we'll come back and ask Ngozi more about the women thing, because Pius just talked about the gender issue, and I'm happy we have a female as a guest here. Every time I talk with women or every time I talk about issues, I also say that women are most times left out of the equation, maybe for reasons known. Let's even take for politics, for even elections. So women queue up in the sun and vote men. So we must begin to encourage women to take up spaces where they be able to discuss their own matter. Because yes, as NGOs, as advocates or activists, there's so much we can do, yeah, but it's sweeter when women are able to mobilize forces and take care of issues that affect them. Remember too that if the worst comes to worst scenario, it falls back at them. Even with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've also seen how women become really, really overwhelmed, because they become even caregivers when they are not nurses or doctors, and all that. So we must begin. I'd like to ask Ngozi later on after this text how women can begin to also put themselves together in groups and support each other. Because the truth is, a whole lot goes on with the psyche of women that a lot of people are not paying attention to. So they become so overwhelmed, get depressed, and mental issue is also there. And it's really not a sweet story. Um, Giata Johnson says, very correct. More than 60% of the population are youth. So help me take the next one here from same person, Ngozi.
Okay, she said, honestly, the low degree of the interest of Nigeria youth towards climate change is alarming. Yes, very true. Very true. And it's very sad. Yeah.
This
Okay,
other
she
one,
also
please.
said, okay, I feel that poor drainage system is a cause to flooding in Nigeria, especially in the north. I remember when I was doing an internship with KEPA in Kaduna, poor drainage system was everywhere. Yeah, not just in the north, everywhere in Nigeria we have we,
Everywhere,
we have
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Even in
we
the
have
east,
that.
so
Yeah.
terrible.
Yes. Very terrible in the east. Yeah, very terrible.
Yeah. Pius, if you can see this other one here from Jetta, she even mentioned you. So go on and read.
Okay. She says, Pius, you've given a very elaborate point. So we need to leverage on social media and keep up with the sensitization. I think that's key.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
because
true.
that's the youth
Yeah,
power.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. So Ngozi, let's come back to you on gender issues. How can women begin to also, because women have a voice. It's just that
Yeah,
they don't use it. Let's just be true about it. Women have
that's true.
voices, they have a strong mobilization, they have numbers. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
somehow, I mean, look at the political space. Let's even start with that.
Yeah,
How can we begin to
yeah.
encourage young people, young girls, young
Mm,
professionals to also tilt towards heading to lawmaking, because we can make all the noise. When it gets to the table of the lawmakers, it is issues that they are more interested in, that they, raise their voices. And if we don't see more women in such spaces, we'll be doing like 10 steps forward, 2 steps backward. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like you said, very true. Women have been underrepresented in every sector of, especially in Nigeria. It's so alarming that with our population as women, we still depend on men to even speak about issues that concern us. Okay. When we talk about climate change and COVID-19, women are mostly impacted because 80% of people that are displaced by climate change around the world are women. And we found out during the COVID issue that women were that indirectly impacted, even though we had statistics that show that more men were victim of COVID-19, but indirectly women were faced with loss of job, loss of their occupation, because most of them are in the informal sector, and because of the lockdown they couldn't go out to trade as they used to do, so they were impacted. And like you mentioned, most of them were also forced to become caregivers when they are not trained. So it's time for women to take their space. Okay, that's why we're advocating for women's movements, for coalition of women to come together. Okay, and do, through training and capacity development. Okay, we're currently, my organization is currently working on a project that is being funded by women. We are raising 100 champions to speak, to know how legislation are made about the issue of gender-based violence. This is what we need more. Even in Nigeria, we need to have an inclusive political system. We have a political system in Nigeria that doesn't favor women. Of course, the cost of being a politician or vying for any post in Nigeria is very expensive for women to even venture into. So we need to have that discussion, how we would make sure that our political system is inclusive so that women can also be part of it. Women can take their space. The Beijing conference that put 30% or even 40% of the leadership position to women. Nigeria has not implemented it. How can we, when the cost of picking a form to run as a House of Rep member is very, very expensive? So where would women, and considering our economic disadvantage, we earn less. So we need to have this discussion. How can we support women to be in this political system so that when issues concerning women are being discussed, we have our own people speaking about issues that affect us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I like the part where you talked about that form issue, because it's really a disadvantage of its own when you raise the bars. And then come to even think of it, even political parties that have said they are giving free forms to women, it's just like a charade on its own, because when you call for political meetings at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., you're already sidelining the women out of it. I mean, a woman who has a husband who has so many motives in his mind may not let his wife go out at that time of the night. A woman who's breastfeeding or a pregnant woman can't. So you already, when you set some things in place, you already indirectly you are disenfranchising a particular gender. So we need to do a whole lot on that. Mr. Pius, let's come back to you. We're also looking at the issue. Let's even ask what has changed. Every time we have you on this show, you talk about the new norm and all that, yeah. And every time I talk about the new norm, I'm always going to refer to you and say, just like Mr. Pius, we say that we are living the new normal. So, what has really changed? What needs to change? And what can we do to make a change?
Okay, thank you. I think before I drop to what has changed, let me relate us to what we already have on ground. First, I'll start by the adoption of the Paris Agreement in December 2015, and that marks a new international chapter of cooperation for climate or on climate. And the NDC, in this view, is a breakthrough because it brings about innovative tools, because it's a framework that integrates a kind of bottom-up or self-motivated voluntary commitment by states or by countries with a set of legally binding provisions for the monitoring and also kind of ratcheting up ambitions. And so Africa, for example, NDC stress the need for adaptation, which is one of the things that changed for us. And so, because of this, is they want to African countries want to reduce the vulnerability in sectors such as agriculture, health, and others like urban and ecological system across. And so, hence, this brings about the need for the change that we desire, which is intergenerational equity, innovations, adaptations, and locally driven or local community-based driven actions to reduce this vulnerability that is affecting us in a broader scale. So this brings us to light that we need to do more. And when this is, what this is saying is that, one, we need to commit more, or what has changed is that we need to commit more to youth innovations, to bringing youth to the party, just like my colleague Ngozi have said, that youth need to come to the party in terms of decision making, in terms of policies, in terms of plans and programs, because youth have this innovation that will drive and propel actions more effectively with their energy, with their enthusiastic energy. You could see how youth engage using social media. You could see how youth drive processes, innovation in terms of turning some fantastic youth, turning waste products into biofuels, into fantastic house furnitures, into innovative things that we could use, and also reducing those wastes that are accumulated across the country and even the continent. Now, you could also drive in the process of restoration. You could see amazing youth driving the process of planting of trees. I have a colleague of mine in Kenya, for example, who is an African, and she has, through her innovation, planted over 30,000 trees across with the use of other youth, or with the support of other youth in high school and also in other cadres of academics. So these are some of the measures. And youth also needs to, we need to also commit youth in the area of smart agriculture, for example. Youths with their innovations, I know a lot of youths that are into agri or agro-tech or an agri-produce, where they locally use their backyard, for example, to serve as aquaculture or poultry, some aquaculture in fisheries, for example. Some has also been into homegrown gardens, for example. Those are innovations in which government, for example, need to try and support, provide sub-grants, sub-loans for you to scale up this innovation, and this will help also propel the economy of the country and the continent. I think that is what we need to do now. And also looking at our targets at the NDC, youth integration need to come into place. We need to maintain youth and gender, because that's the only way in which we could and we can achieve our NDC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In case you just joined us, I must say you've missed quite a lot, but we're streaming live on two destinations. So we're live on YouTube, and we're also live on Facebook, and we're talking about our environment, we're talking about climate change, as also it relates to COVID-19. And I've got my two guests here, Ngozi and Pius, lending their voices to issues that affect us and how we all can cope. We'll be reading the final messages soon as we also wrap up, but I'll be coming back to my guests to ask them once again on a few issues before we wrap up. But this is to also say the comment section is there. Keep your messages coming. The video will still be here after the broadcast, so you can share, you can still drop your comments. It's ongoing, and I hope to bring Pius and Ngozi maybe next week to also follow up on these, and we'll see how it goes. And this is also saying thanks to CS DevNet and Pagja for also supporting this episode of the program so we could talk extensively on climate change, the environment, and COVID-19. Let me bring Ngozi back and talk about a few more issues. We're wrapping up soon in another 5 minutes, but then let's see how much time we can have to talk on other issues. Now, how has the journey been for the females, because sometimes issues like environment seems to be a little on the offside. It's sometimes gender bias. People feel it has to do more with the men, just like when you see a girl in an engineering class, so to say. So how have you coped, when people see you talk about environment, talk about waste and all that? For Pius, is a norm, is a normal norm for him, but for a lady, they like, madam, you don't see other things like the fashion industry. I interviewed a woman here one time who she's an expert in oil and gas, and she's like, sometimes she finds it hard to relate with ladies when they have conversations, because many of the times it is about how to fix eyelashes, how to put the new cake and all that. And then when she comes up talking about oil and gas, everyone is looking at her like, which strange woman is this? So for you in your field work, how have you been able to cope, and how are you making sure other young ladies come on board and are able to be mentored by you in that aspect?
All right, thank you. I would say the journey of being an advocate, an environmental advocate, is something I just went in accidentally because I wanted to study medicine, but the normal issue with writing JAM in Nigeria. So I later
Jam,
studied
yeah.
forestry and environmental management. So getting that course was an eye opener, like realizing what is happening to our environment made me to have a passion in what I'm doing now. Okay, it's not easy for us as women in this field, but knowing that this field in this situation impacts us. Whenever we have issue, women are mostly affected, and it's not different with climate change issue, because when we talk about um, the flooding, when we talk about people being displaced due to flooding, women are being vulnerable at high
Receiving
risk
end,
compared
yeah,
to men. So
yeah.
this is what we need to do. We need to, for me, I see that in every sector that women's life are being affected, we need to have a voice there. So this is me having a voice in a sector I believe that women are vulnerable to. I have been involved with a lot of coalition of women. We have young women network that's advocating for climate change. So we are still growing up. We're still growing up. We are building it, and we are mentoring young girls to take up course in that are linked with environment. We need to understand first what is happening, then we can find a solution. So it has not been easy, but we've been getting we've been getting support, like what CSDevNet is doing and what ACJA is doing by bringing me on board on this. So this is a way they are supporting us. So we look forward for more support so that women can lend their voices to issue like this, because it's only when we lend our voices, then we can find a solution that detail the problem we are facing as women. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm coming back to Pius as we wrap up, but I got a message here from Lawal Umar, and it says, Bravo team, CS DevNet. Thank you so much, Lawal Umar, for that wonderful message there. Pius, as we wrap up, please take us through some of the activities and a few ongoing projects that you have also been doing, mentoring other young people, and particularly for the activities that CROP has also been doing. You might also need to take us through that in the couple of minutes as we wrap up.
Okay, thank you so much, and for the various comments from the platform. Thank you, and I want to our mandate actually. What we try to drive is deepening Nigerian civil society engagement in the post-Paris climate change dialogue and response strategies, and also trying to implementing the NDC and working with government. So with that, one of our drive actually is through public awareness and advocacy. And because of this, amidst this pandemic where situations were difficult, one of the innovations we, through the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, drove into is to see how we could sustain advocacy for climate action in this current pandemic, even as we are easing off, hopefully. And with that, we came up with what we call community resource persons, and which is the CRP, and then the youth digital activists, which is the YDAs. And in that, it's currently ongoing within 8 countries. And in Nigeria, we engage about 20 amazing youths, and also women, marginalized groups, to lead this initiative where we aim to effectively participate in climate change and SDG dialogue processes from the community, that's giving the voice to the vulnerable and the grassroots, like a bottom-up approach of scaling situations or ideas from the grassroots, because we have discovered through our engagement that the voices of the grassroots is lacking in decision making. And so to help propel this action, we're using this youth, we are also partnering with youth in Nigeria to see how we could drive ideas from your own community and not anywhere else, from your own community, ideas, solutions to some of these ravaging issues affecting the country, affecting the communities, to bring it to the national level where we could use these ideas, this initiative to engage with policymakers in driving the change which we need, and also holding also the government accountable to the seriousness of the Paris Agreement through the NDC, with its mandate, which are in 5 thematic areas in terms of agriculture, energy, oil and gas, the industries and transportation. Also looking at water and waste as well. So that's one of our initiatives. And the other aspect in which also youth is leading in CSWNet is the approach of having a kind of CSO evidence-based influence on policies, programs, and that we are engaging with various institutions across the country, like we have ongoing research with the Federal University of Petroleum, FRO, on looking at the Nigeria NDC, how it's being, the implementation practices, and also recommendation from the research angle, because we believe that when facts and figures are out, we use that more to keep the engagement. And also with Alex Efeme, for example, University, Federal University in Ebonyi State, we're also having a look at the energy, looking at energy, renewable energy as or as we have it in the NDC, seeking recommendations in ways in making sure that we implement the NDC, looking at it, and also approaching the 2030 target. So, and of course, we've been engaging severally with also the focal point, which is the Department of Climate Change. Recently, or this year, we came up with a report of the COP, trying to also bring those reports, negotiations from the COP. We printed, or we had the release of outcome at the COP, so that we'll be able to have ideas of some of the negotiations that took place in such the UNFCCC meetings, and how we could, down here in the country locally, use those outcomes to drive our own implementation of the NDC. So I think those are some of the few things which we'll be doing. Of course, we've been engaged also in advocacy and in mangrove restoration across the mangrove in Cross River State, for example, where we know that erosion is ravaging some of the communities, and so we need to plant some trees to help mitigate some of those climate change or devastation that might come in. So we've been engaging, and we hope to also engage more with civil societies across Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So finally, Ngozi, what's your parting words? What would you like to say to everyone? And if there are felicitations you need to give to organizations that you partner with, your colleagues and all that, You have the floor to wrap up now.
Right. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank CS Development for this opportunity. Like, this is what we need more, and we thank you, Chaga Link TV. This is a partnership that we're looking for the media to partner with CSOs in lending our voices to issues like climate change. I also tell young people in Nigeria they are doing amazing work. Honestly, they are doing amazing work, but we need to go to the grassroots. We need to go to the local communities to amplify our voices. And as young people, we will start by ourselves. Let's start thinking about going green. Like we say, build back green, so that when we look back, we'll be happy that we have done something. We've taken action. Every day, let's take one action for the climate. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you. Looking forward for more opportunity to also lend my voices to issue on environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ngozi. And Pius, your final words?
My final word, I think it's not final yet because we'll keep on engaging. But I want to thank Shangaliku TV for wonderful hosting and also trying to keep our voice up there, because it's through the media that it could also, our message could go far and also could educate more those that need to hear this. And I want to also thank also my team at CSFNet and also Twitter. Just quickly, I would like to tell you that currently we're also having a research with the University of Glasgow in the UK on the impact of COVID-19 on the NDC, on the Nigerian NDC, because we know that this is affecting the implementation of the NDC. So that research is currently ongoing as well with our partners. So I want to thank also my North Central coordinator, Dr. Gio. I saw a reaction earlier, so she's following up with this conversation. She is a North Central, and also amazing colleagues with your comments. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having more conversation. Let's keep the social media abuzz with some of the issues that we are currently discussing. It's not ending until we have a solution to climate change in Nigeria. So let's keep it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's the size of the program. I want to thank everyone who's joined us from across the globe. Thanks to particularly Ogbenyalo, who also sent us messages from Dublin, Ireland. I know one of our other very regular viewer from the Philippines, Karim Jackson, also watches all the time. Thank you so much. And for everyone who's always supported us, we really, really thank you for making sure that you bring Shagalinku on air and takes care of all the bills. I know sometimes people don't like us mentioning their names, but then we always say thank you. Do also remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that whenever we come on air, you get a notification and join us. And yes, all our social media handle is at Shagalinku TV. And finally, I want to thank my guests, Ngozi and Pius, for being here. Hopefully, when we have them on a part 2, we'll be looking at what COVID has done and how it relates to affecting young people. Every time we talk about COVID and how it has affected society, the economy, the workforce, but we leave out the children out of it. They are not back in school yet. And even though federal government has said schools will be open soon, but then we could just wake up one morning again and they say schools should be closed because of new cases and all of that. So when I have them the next time, God willing, we'll be looking at how it affects young people and children particularly, so that we can even make it all inclusive and ask our guests what they think about that and what we can also begin to do to make sure that our children are protected. My name is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari, and thank you all for joining us. I can't say it enough. Thanks, thanks, thanks. And finally, let me also say thanks to Climate and Sustainable Development Network, CSDEFNet, and also Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PAGJA, for supporting this episode. We really thank you. And yes, for all of us who were supposed to be at that roundtable meeting on gender-based violence for traditional and religious leaders and CSOs and media, which we were supposed to hold this morning, Climate change brought its own issues with it, with rainfall, heavy rainfall that lasted for like 6 hours non-stop. So we couldn't do it today. So this is apologies to everyone, all our guests that we were supposed to have at that roundtable sensitization workshop. We'll be doing it tomorrow by 2 p.m., God willing. So tell someone to tell someone that we'll be doing it at American Corner, Kano State Library, 2 p.m. at Amadu Bello Way. Okay, thank you all for finding time to join us, and thanks once again to my guests. Till I see you all on Tuesday's edition of the program. Enjoy the rest of the Saturday and take care of yourselves. God bless you all. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.